Koskiwa, amazing Amazons, women, warriors, women and men, women, warriors. You have never feared a fight because you have always fought as one. There was always a fire in you that would consume your greatest enemies. Amazing Amazons. Warriors. Where are you now? Have you forgotten your war dances?
It's good. Oh.
Have you forgotten your war songs?
Okay.
Or do you think the war is over? An amazing Amazon is Miss Lucy Campbell, who fights for women's rights, who fights for your culture. She is an activist, a teacher, strongly cultivating African pride. She is a founder. Her story, she's a storyteller. Her stories have been truthfully told and celebrated in the places of our first people, the Africans. She comes from Cape Town. She is a founder and special guide to those Cape Town people. And her character adds grist to the mill. She makes even the dreariest day a joy because of her effervescent spirit, engaging voice, and animated telling of Cape Town's layered narrative. She transcends a history of shame by celebrating the achievements of the greats who built South Africa's first city. She is one of those captivating human beings who can, on any given day, speak about plants, indigenous medicine, the disgrace of politicians who have betrayed their roots, gender liberation, the mystery of the ancient mountains, infuriating relations with Indians, or the histories of Cape Town that must be told. She is an artist. She is an activist. She is a bush woman. She is an amazing Amazon, Miss Lucy Campbell.
Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome.
We have about how many students here? Go.
Do we have students there?
Yes, ma'am. Plenty.
I think they're going to hear stories they've never heard before. And you know, when you introduced me, I had a knob in my throat. I think I still have that knob in my throat. And I'm feeling fiery. And thank you for this opportunity for me to share my story with you. And I'd like to start off by calling out to all other activists, locally and globally, who are consciously developing and cultivating a better planet for humanity, and developing a healing awareness of self and our communities. You know, this is a very sad story that I will share with you now. And I say it with all pride because the work and the journey that I come from is a long journey. And my journey starts with museums. I started finding out more about Lucy in a museum. And this museum is called Groot Constantia Museum now. It used to be the old manor house of Simon van der Stel, one of the first perpetrators and one of the first orchestrators of colonialism here in Cape Town. He later became very, very rich, and he had a dynasty, sort of under him here in Cape Town. And that house is a haunting place. I worked there. I started working in museums there. I started to become me in that museum. It is quite crazy that the Colonial Museum, I started off with my journey in a colonial museum. Actually, if I think about heritage and culture, I have a background of feminism. I have a background. I don't like the word feminism. That's another debate. But I have a political activist background also. But what is more for me now, so important, after my first meeting with Hussein, with Anna de Koning. Anna de Koning was one of the first slave owners of that place, Groot Constantia. I mean, Groot Constantia wines was one of the best wines in the world at one point. But they made so much money off, of the sale of wines, off the make of wines. So there's a richness here in Cape Town, which only a few benefit from. And the wine industry in Cape Town is very popular worldwide. But yet people, our indigenous people, the Khoi and the San people, the San and the Khoi people, they are still addicted to alcohol. And this comes from the wine industry, where they started giving wine to children. And that is how I started learning about my activism in museums and heritage studies, because that is where I unpacked myself and am now redoing myself and relearning, the beauty of me and the love of me. So I come from skeletons in the closet. I come from almost an erasure of culture. If you think about the city of Cape Town, that it was once a world economy, based on grain and wine and all other kind of products. And you see that this place is still very much at the center of the winemaking, at the center of richness and wealth. This place is so unequal. The socio-economic situation here in Cape Town is so imbalanced, and it's actually, I would call it debauchery. If you think about how our people are living in backyards, our people who are the indigenous people of the Khoi and the San people. And many people are going to argue with me politically and say, no, but what is San and what is Khoi and what is colored? So the issue of the colored people are at the center of all the fights that is happening here in Cape Town. I have to be very clear with our audience out there. Even the political situation in Cape Town is different to the situations in other places in South Africa. So if we look back to the history, and I made sure that culture becomes my new currency. And that is what I think Kim agrees with me. And I saw this, you're talking about culture being the new currency. Because culture is becoming so out there. People are starting to talk about their culture. People are starting to learn about the culture. This book, which is called Khoi Useful Phrases and Words, are one of the products that came out now currently and was launched by Denver Torocha. He is a linguist, he's learning the language, he's teaching other people the language, and he's passionate about it, and we're all passionate about it. And we are slowly but surely stepping out of this Western style of doing things. If I could just say where I am currently, we call it Opiat. It's a project, but it's also now become a way of life, where we have started growing food and growing medicine, specifically indigenous knowledge and herbs, and going back to those systems and finding solutions in those very systems. We're finding solutions there. And if you look at how, people might say I'm romanticizing our indigenous people, but this is how indigenous women were treated. They were revered. You couldn't speak to a woman unless you come through many levels of talking to you and finding out who are you. So we come from greatness. We come from Africanness. We are the first people. We come from not just the first people. I mean, we come from the sun. We come from the Khoi. We come from Atlantic Ocean, we come from the Indian Ocean. We are a beautiful people. We are so different, but yet we are so volatile. We, if you think about this intergenerational trauma that the people of Cape Town and South Africa are facing currently, and this is not coming through to the public, to the people. So we are starting to cultivate that understandings and manifesting a love in the center of our engagement with ourselves and our neighborhoods. And we started to green the neighborhood. People are coming out and saying, but what are you doing? And we're saying, but we're growing herbs. We're growing indigenous herbs. These are your ancestors. So we're telling our neighbors a story, and they're starting to embrace this. It's wonderful to see. Something that I cannot forget to tell you. I know our time is short, but I have to first start with my story with the women of Cape Town, with the indigenous women, which doesn't get any leeway. I mean, our indigenous women are not revered because the story is not told, and the grand narrative is very much out there, still in the open. I mean, if any one of you come on a tour with me, you'll see that the master is still displayed in the streets. It's still up there, you have to look up to it. It's crazy. It's crazy. So we here have hard work to do, but this journey is coming in on long, and we are starting to educate and cultivate a planting of seeds and a sharing of seeds and a getting to know your community, getting to know who's your neighbors. So the neighbors are asking, and our plants are growing into their yards. So they are also becoming aware. It's like a consciousness, a deeper consciousness of the people here, and the women in our communities. I mean, and I want to say before, I have to say these words so that I can bring these women's memory to you right now, and that they can be alive right now. I'm speaking out women like Zara. She was an indigenous woman. She took her own life. I have once again, I feel like crying if I talk about her. But she was an amazing warrior. I mean, she took her own life because she had enough of the system. And she said, I don't want this anymore. I mean, and she is one of many other women that became sort of the handmaidens, that became the the nurses, the nurses to these colonialists. They became the concubines. And the women, the indigenous women, are ancient mothers whose blood runs through our veins. And that's how I'd like to see a strong women's movement here in Southern Africa and here in Cape Town. And we really do need a very strong women's movement. And even the men that are listening right now would agree with me that the women are the most abused currently. And then we speak of Krutowa. She was a negotiator. She was a multilingualist. We speak of China from Sangarola, bought and sold plenty times and landed up here in Cape Town. Groot Katrine from Pulikat, India. We're talking Angela van Bengal, Amuseng Klaas, who was a matron in the slave lodge. She was born in the slave lodge. So for me, it's when you call up the memory of your ancestors, you start to remember how they lived. That is how I'm feeling. And I'm feeling a lot more to nature. I'm feeling a lot more to understanding and learning about my history and the history of the people, and to start finding a place where leadership becomes one of the solutions in our communities. It is very difficult to be a leader currently. I mean, I wouldn't follow anybody currently, in this current leadership disaster that we're facing here in our communities. So it is important, I think, to share with you, our activism right here in Cape Town, and that we are very much going and moving towards the land, towards the soil, to the belief that we can reverse, our crises in our communities. I mean, and this would be drug abuse. This would be a rape. I mean, we are of the places in the world that has the most rape cases. You know, our jails are full of our people, and I'm talking about our San people, our Khoi people. You know, our young people are in jails. You know, and so poverty, our social condition, it is there, and let truth be told, it is there. But what are we doing in our communities? What are we? Are we assisting those of us that can assist? Those of us that doesn't have to move out of the communities, that can actually stay at home and buy a small piece of land, buy a small piece of place if you can afford it. I know all of us can't, but those of us that can, I think it's important for us to start investing ourselves in cultivating that African pride in our children and in our people. And that the healing process be acknowledged, it must be recognized that the people, indigenous people, that there was genocide, that there was a full-scale trade of slave trade to Cape Town, and that those things need to be acknowledged, and that people need to manifest, you know, this who we are, and the building of neighborhoods, which is the bedrock of who we are, of our communities, of our neighborhoods. So the planting of food and the planting of indigenous herbs and the indigenous knowledge, I believe, is going to lift us up. And it is lifting us up. It's lifting me up. It's lifting out the people that have put in to make this happen. You know, and that culture becomes a currency, and that we believe in ourselves here in Cape Town. And I am very blessed. I am very blessed to say that I, at least at my age, I can experience this freedom in me, and
Yes.
and the love and an African pride. Yes. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Lucy. Okay. So, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So we're gonna have lunch here. So we want to thank you for joining us. Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Students are hungry.
Blessings. Thank you.
Thank
Bye
you.
now. Thank you.
Very early. So we're going to go on the other side, which is actually the women's jail, the atrium, and we're going to get a snack. You're going to get something to eat, and then we will come back for the keynote, because I think you are tired and hungry. Yes. Am I right, sir? Yes. So I'm going to ask the young people. We're going to start here and go through these rows before we go to the older ones. So please, if you walk out, go that way and into the atrium. Sir, can you help your team? Yes. Thank you very much. Please join, follow. And then we'll come back, okay? You'll get something to snack on, and then we'll come right back. And then we'll do the keynote, and then we'll break into groups. The person from the US who has to do the, she was supposed to be an introduction to the keynote. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mama. That was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. You're going to take a picture of that. So I just wanted to get something that can come back. Yes.
Are we still good in the room?
Yes, you are fine. We're just going to come back for the key. keynote, which is apparently 12 minutes in here, and then we split into your groups. You stay here, people go there. Yeah, you can stand up and walk me. Thank you. Thank you so much. The ladies who have to work with you will go directly to you. And you know who they are, right? Yeah. Those people know where they're going.
Yeah,
The young people will intersperse with the group. Okay?
So we'll just go there, we go.
Yes, you can do that. Thank you.
The keynote means the.
Yes.
Except for the food. Just wait. This one.
Listen, we're not talking about you're telling the story. No, you
What does that say? Are these her glasses?
So I was going to ask the teacher to actually say the story. Because I'm sure.
She doesn't she can go speak to Donna and she will ask
Okay, everyone's eating.
Oh, good. Thank you. So shall we send this group now? They all go to is there space now? I just didn't want it to get too crowded.
Yeah, it's still like in the room. And then, I think it's lunch coming at 2.
2:30. I think they need a break because they've been out since 7.
Mm.
You can tell me to look at this guy for another teacher. I mean, he doesn't even know how to go. I asked him if he can sing. He said, no, I He thinks he's a big star. I didn't
God, you should say.
I think it's the same.
Okay, you guys can go and get something to eat. And then we'll just come right back here. Okay, thank you.
Why do you think we're here? Oh, she's worried about your nerve.
Oh, yeah, it's still live, so.
Yeah, just put it.
How you been here, Ratu?
Want to test? Oh, yes, yes.
And also, you connect with the guy, right? So it will be, are we still gonna connect with him?
Yeah, yes, we're trying to get him on,
It's
but,
very early in the morning.
yeah, but we have his video at least,
Yeah.
so,
So we can share the video at least.
right. Oh, hey, good morning.
How's it going?
Oh, good
I
morning.
look different. I took my
Oh,
braids
it's
out. How
okay,
you
good,
doing?
good, good to see you. He would know, but let me, oh, go ahead.
If you have to eat outside and you want to go inside, Mama, sorry. Sorry.
So I'm gonna take this one off. Oh, yeah, you gotta do is take this.
That's what I'm
There you
looking
go.
for.
We are still live streaming. Hey, Nene Hurst. Hello, y'all now.
So it's okay.
Okay. So it's Farm Hill, capital C.
Capital C, capital G. One is
Okay,
S.
okay. Okay. Let's see.
Ratu, did you get something to eat?
I don't fine. I'm just having food.
Okay.
Okay, yes. Yeah, yeah.
Still up. How long have you been working? This is my fourth year. Okay. Good. Good. Why asking? Because I also do something. What?
You know I'm so fake. You should know I'm so fake. You trained everybody in the industry.
I know. This is very simple. And I said, I learned somewhere maybe around here.
This is a senior fake. Kiki, you know what time tomorrow at 1:02? Because it's only 1:02 tomorrow, isn't it? The service, the daily service.
Correct.
You know what time? The message is she wants to know what time. That's it. Yeah.
Right.
Haki.
No, ma'am.
No, Haki.
Yes.
After that, everybody will be. What's your right? I'm going to meet all of so when you are working with young people and you see them and you talk to them for an hour and a half, they're already lost. No, I'm just saying that all of these places, yes. I mean, thank God for dedicating. So I don't know if that's the thing, at least they just came out, so they should be alive, and wait, it's very sweet. 12 minutes, one group here, one group there, one group there. That's fine. I don't mind how you want to get with your son. That's okay. So, Leonardo, I'll be back. So you don't know that, do you know what country you want to As long as we know that we can talk to them.
Yes. Okay.
Oh my God. Thank God nothing's up here. Did you imagine? Because everyone's going. And then once you pull them teeth, you're gonna start fizzling. Hey? Liraka means love. Liraka means love. We used to do a lot of work with the young people, and there was a liraka. She used to always say, liraka means love.
Wow,
So when we shouted that, she said it means love. Okay, everybody, are we okay? We're gonna have to get ready to come back. We're gonna give you another 5 minutes. Okay? Where's teacher? Be on that time. Then my bag is there in my phone.
So you know technology. When it's people, it tends to do things. Because this projector, I was using it just yesterday. Just yesterday, I was using this.
Well, this is a nice day.
No, is that working? Not working.
So it doesn't want to project on
It don't project on your thing.
my screen. I'm on the machine. So I'm testing yours.
Yeah, this one worked. So
It worked.
maybe I'll try to get off here and. Those guys there, they got it to work earlier.
Even is
Want to try it again? Oh, he trying yours. Okay. Oh, thanks. But I'll get out your way.
Same video.
Is you on a stick so that you don't need to download it? Isn't it ready? Is the video on the stick?
Yep.
Kim, well,
Download it. You didn't download it.
no.
Downloaded.
That's why they're not getting it because it's on a link.
Well, he got it here, but I mean,
They should download it. If you download it,
you downloaded it? Ola, he downloaded it.
so I have to get you guys.
So Loretta,
Sometimes
you disabled.
I'm a little tech savvy. I kind of know some things, but sometimes I got a lot thinking and going, but I managed to do well though. I mean,
Let's see that it goes on.
Yeah. Not yet. When I get
this conference and the questions that you will have.
thank you. So it worked without the drive. So it works both ways, brother.
it's fine.
Thank you.
This conference, but as you can see, this exhibit.
I've just done that.
Thank you, brother.
No problem. You can come back now. Start, finish. So only like planning.
Okay, guys, we're not supposed to be bringing food inside here. No. Okay, so just keep it with you, but we're not supposed to be bringing food inside, okay?
South Africa, sis. We in South Africa. All right, almost ready.
Can you all come back in, please? We're waiting for you. Oh, okay, all right. Yeah. I thought I saw her.
Oh, who, Mama Days?
Yes.
So are we ready?
Yeah, we are ready.
Okay. Whenever you're ready, Mama. Oh, no. She's going to introduce him, and then we can press play.
So in America, when I say I go, everyone responds and they say Amen. Say Amen. Amen. So when I say I go, I'm asking for your attention. And your response is Amen, which means I give over and I'm listening. So, I go? Amen. Hey. Now, John Swain is the Chief Executive Officer of the International Civil Rights Center and Museum, which sits in the building that once housed the Woolworths 5 and Dime store on Elm Street in downtown Greensboro. John Swain is focusing on the present and the future, while at the same time honoring and preserving the past. He recognizes the necessity of the civil rights movement and its connection to Africa. Because Dr. King once said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Just as the push for civil rights was an arduous, years-long battle, so too was the effort to fund, build, and sustain the museum that opened 10 years ago. The aim of the museum's founders is to ensure that history remembers the actions of those who joined together to free ourselves from the oppressor, for civil rights, for all are we, no matter where we live, and its connection to the beginning to Africa. I give to you, as we say in America, make some noise for Mr. John Swain.
My name is John Swain. I'm the CEO for the International Civil Rights Center and Museum, and it's a pleasure to be visiting you from the United States and to be with you for this conference in Johannesburg, South Africa. As you can see in our international gallery here, we have an exhibit up for Helen Suzman and Nelson Mandela. I have become aware of the activism of Helen Suzman as being a primary person to help have Nelson Mandela released from prison after 46 years. I'm looking forward to this conference and the questions that you will have at the end of my presentation. I'm sorry I couldn't be with you all in Johannesburg, South Africa for this conference, but as you can see, this exhibit in our international gallery helps me to be very connected to this conference. When Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. proclaimed that he had a dream for a future civil rights nation if the United States finally honored its solemn promises to vindicate human rights, it was obviously not about something that showed up in his subconscious while he was asleep. It was a picture of a possible community whose distance from immediate presence did not make it any less real or visible in the mind's eye. One powerfully meaningful capacity for making art is to sketch a plausible picture of what the world might look like if our civil justice propositions were implemented. This would surely be better than just hopeful words alone. The people want to be able to see themselves in a secure context of enlightened human relations. A picture, as we know, is worth 1,000 words. But we must convert this slogan into a test of human imagination that can project from a passive state of affairs as we now experience them into a practical application of honorable promises. In the United States, as we teach these ideas at the International Civil Rights Center and Museum in Greensboro, North Carolina, where the nation's sit-in movement began on February 1, 1960, when 4 Black college freshmen sat down at a public lunch counter where African Americans had previously been excluded. The long-delayed national implementation of the 3rd constitutional founding of the United States after the Civil War in the mid-1800s requires more than composing and then ratifying a fine set of words. It requires a concerted process of envisioning, crafting, negotiating, and finally composing of the sort that the creative founders of the past have carried out in order to bring their words to life. This is about seeing a possible future, and it involves visual thinking. What I'm saying here, and what we are committed to at the International Civil Rights Center and Museum, is that this involves an additional social value to be ascribed to the arts. How do you get people to see what the world might look like if we were true to our official promises? Now, I know and appreciate that the first and probably most important thing that thoughtful people usually say about the value of arts to an enlightened civilization is that they are the ultimate expressions of human freedom, both individual and collective. But we need to recall constantly that when the makers of art are suppressed, a society has started along its final path toward absolute authoritarianism. So it stands to easy justification that the protection and advancement of the capacity for creativity is a background condition for civil progress in accordance with the protection of human rights. What I am saying here, once again, and what we are committed to at the Civil Rights Museum, is that this might mean an additional social value to be ascribed to the arts. This is not simply about exploring incidental associations between the arts in civil rights. It will require looking into the deeper dimensions of human freedom and civil envisioning. Included here would be an attentiveness to the fast evolving issues of public art as related to community expression and public education. Can we set an agenda to examine the variety of ways in which we might cultivate the civic imagination to transform and implement our understanding of a national community of equals? This would represent a nation's ultimate contribution to an enlightened world civilization. You might be wondering what I mean by this idea of envisioning a newly built community based on more enlightened human relations. A picture, we all know, is worth 1,000 words. But we must convert this slogan into a test of human imagination that can project from a passive state of affairs, as we now experience them, into a practical application of honorable promises. At the F.W. Woolworth's landmark in Greensboro, about 6 years ago, as we marked the milestone of settling financial obligations that we had incurred to create the Civil Rights Museum, we wanted to embark upon a new stage of development. We decided to establish what we call the Initiative for the New Constitution of the United States. We knew we were approaching the 150th anniversary of the fundamental constitutional changes that settled our Civil War and ended the formal slave regime that had existed since 1619. Now, I realize you all may be wondering, how is it that something that's a century and a half old can be considered new? But I'll bet you understand too that new isn't only a matter of age, but also a novelty, innovation. And our 19th century Constitution of full and equal citizenship nest and fundamental rights of personhood for everyone in the country is just as new now as it was back then. And especially so since we still haven't come to terms with implementing the solemn promises made back then as a condition of bringing the country back together. You may be aware that our civil rights movement of the 1960s was motivated precisely because of this nation's abject failure to honor the words we said we cherished after the war, a century before. They were, after all, the response to the largest bloodshed in our history, sacrificed at our own hands. So our museum committed itself not only to remember and cultivate the visionary values of the civil rights movement and the key sit-ins that took place in our building, but also the deeper commitment made in the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments that reconstructed our Constitution 100 years before that. These are formative changes that still beg to be realized in our own day. Now, just so you'll know, I get some of these perspectives from our principal scholar at the museum, who is a professor at the University of Pennsylvania. He heads that initiative, and he's tried to teach us that you don't change the world with just powerful words. A real constitution must change the way people frame what they believe and how they see. And that's where the arts come in, the way I've suggested so far. What I understand is that this envisioning of a new world where the words will finally be true, or at least more true, requires creating a picture of possibility that you can actually live in and prosper. In the end, we ratified this new Constitution by seeing ourselves walk around in it. And that can be accomplished through all of these arts: drama, music, dance, painting, drawing, written compositions, and so on. Picture the thought, my colleague would say. For us in the United States, part of what has held us back from moving into an already chosen future and scripted is that we haven't adequately composed this picture. We still need to become better artists of possibility. And that's what we are committed to at the Civil Rights Museum. Now, you all know very well that the Republic of South Africa has some exquisitely fine words in your own constitution. You also know that stellar South African visionaries like Helen Suzman, Nelson Mandela, and Bishop Benjamin Tutu have lent perspectives from their transformative humanism to energize the social progress of my country. No doubt, the promising words of your much newer Constitution will be given substance and energy by the creative artistry of South Africans. I look forward to your visit to the International Civil Rights Center and Museum. Thank you.
Yes, I just want to apologize. There was a correction that was brought to my attention. Nelson Mandela was not in prison for 46 years. If anyone caught that, so we apologize for that. And it was 27 years. So just wanted to make that point, but we're ready to go. Thank you all for watching that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we, are we gonna go online with him or no?
I'm sorry?
Are we gonna go online? Is it,
He may pop in a little bit.
you might, okay. All right, yeah, it's the timing. Okay, so I think we're gonna have the next group that's going to do some training for us. So we have how many breakaways here at 4, 3. Okay. So the way that we do it, everybody, is we just count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then all the ones stay and the twos go somewhere else and so forth. I don't know what happened to the other. Have the others left to another group? Yes. They've gone already. Yeah. Okay. So we have one page. We've got you. Yeah. And we've got them. And who else? It's just the two. Yeah. Are you doing any today? Okay, perfect. Okay, then I'm just going to go 2. Okay, so one group will stay here, and then your group you can take to, you know, when you go out to the right, there's this section, so you go through the atrium on the side, you know, there. I don't know that. So I'm just going to go 1, 2. 1, so 1 will stay, and 2s will go. Okay, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2. Take your water, my darling. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. No. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. Yeah. 1, 2. 2. 1, 2.
A second. Okay, thank you, everybody. We'll get back in soon.
1, 2.
Thanks,
1,
Nene.
2. Are you with us? Yes, 2 can go. All right. Okay, so all the 2s will go